Hello. This is an unplanned video. This is a video we're doing because of some circumstances. And I'm also aware that this sort of video will probably end my current upward trajectory on the algorithm. So we're kind of dressing it up in something else. But the end of the video is what I actually want to talk about. This start bit is just some free useful information, which is why you've clicked on it. So enjoy. What I want to talk about is how long it takes to become a professional photographer. And we're going to start at the high end and work our way backwards, because the impression I've given over the last 2 years of being on YouTube is that what the high end is what you're aiming for, and anything below that doesn't exist. So let's look at that. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about where I am in my career. I am currently at a level where I get the big jobs, but I'm no Annie Leibovitz. There's a way for me to go, and that way for me to go is probably 10 years at my current progression in order to be the big Mac Daddy of the graphic and that world. It's a way away, but I've managed to achieve something that I never thought I would. I've managed to shoot worldwide ad campaigns for print for major brands I never thought I would, and that is great. I'm very happy with where I am. If I never get any further in my career, I will die a happy man career-wise, because I've done I've done more than I set out to do. My original plan was not to have to get a real job. I've succeeded in that, and then I've achieved more. Now, I am aiming to get to that high level. That is partly what I work day in, day out for. But it's a long way off. And for those who don't know my work, I'll have a bit of it pop up here. Now, I know my work is not everybody's cup of tea, and that is fine. That is part of being at the level that I work at. You have to carve out your own style, your own niche, your own thing which makes you you. And that if somebody wants it, they'll book it, and if somebody doesn't, they won't. You can't try and please everybody at this level. There's no point in going, well, I'm going to do the same as this successful person, because you'll never be successful because they're already doing it. You have to find your thing, your style, your voice, and your perspective on the world. Now, I started photography in 2010 after a rather horrific run of events in my life, leaving me somewhat homeless, somewhat without money, and with nothing to do. And I borrowed a camera from my lovely uncle, who was kind enough to lend me his Canon 450D and a 28mm lens. And I started taking pictures, and I knew straight away that's what I was going to do. That was going to be my jam. I then bought myself a Bronica ETRSI, and I think I bought myself a Canon AE1. And yes, these are old school film cameras. It wasn't back in the day, obviously, from the 450D. It was just that I couldn't afford a digital camera, and he needed his camera back. So I shot film for a long time. Although expensive to buy the film, I only bought it when I was getting paid and all the rest of it. Anyway, I've been doing this for 12 years. 12 years, 2010, 2022, 12. I should be able to do that quicker. 12 years to get to where I am today. And I would say out of those 12 years, 8 of them I worked hard and focused. The rest of them I partied and pissed it up the wall, which is fine. That's part of growing up and part of life. But 8 solid years to get to where I am today. And that was 8 years of critical work, 8 years of having my work critically reviewed, having feedback, so, really all in. There was never a point in those last 8 years of the 12 years that I thought I'd do anything else. There was no plan B. There was no backup plan. There was no, well, if this doesn't work out, we'll go back to uni and do a PhD and then go into academia. Or if this doesn't work out, we'll go and get a job in, I used to work in project management. So in project management, that was not part of the plan. It was just, I'm going to be a photographer. Within those 12 years, the last 2 years have been particularly good. And that gives me a 10-year gap leading up to the point where I think if you're aiming to be where I currently am, is the period of time. So let's look at what we did in those 10 years. And we're going to work backwards. So for the last 5 of those 10 years, so for half of it, I was commercial photographer. And that means I shot for Premier Drums, their drum kits. I shot for local ad agencies, for campaigns that were overflows from the big ones. I shot for some big ad agencies as well, but not the big campaigns. I did headshots for companies. I did portraits for people. I did a bit of everything. And this is probably where you are right now. And this is the bit where you get stuck and you fall off, especially if you've had a real job in the past and you're making good money. I was fortunate enough that my first ever job was like a 6-figure salary, because Gordon Brown crashed the British economy, and I was being paid in Chinese RMB, and I was sending that money home, and it was good. And going from that to making like 20 grand a year, and then that tapered down at one point. I'll go into that as well. Making like 20 grand a year. It was hard work. It was stressful. It was, and I'm not talking about 20 grand gross. That's my money I take home. The gross is obviously a lot higher, but when you talk about gross, it's really a vanity number. If you go, oh yeah, I make 6 figures gross, that's great. But if your overheads are 50%, then you don't. really make that much money. It's just a number. You know, when we look at productions we do nowadays, the numbers on them are huge, but I don't get all of it. There's a whole crew involved. But I digress. That was my point in my career where I could have stuck and gone, I am going to be a commercial jack of all trades local photographer. But I'm competitive and that wasn't for me. Those 5 years were good. We had constant money coming in, constant work. There's always different work. And it is absolutely, and I think I've sort of poo-pooed this idea in the past, it is absolutely a viable business. You can be the jack of all trades local photographer. You will not get big campaigns. You will not make big money. But that's not important. The amount of money you make is not, for most of us, the reason we do this. Our youngest was asking me recently, he was like, well, and he is young, but it was like, you're good at what you do you make a lot of money? And I don't like talking about money with the children because I don't want them to worry about money or be, concerned about it, or it shouldn't be something at his age he knows about. So I was like, well, do you know what? I make okay money, but even if I made minimum wage, I would still do my job today. If somebody went, right, all photographers just get prorated £8,000 a year, I'd be like, cool, that's good. All my overheads are covered. If I get to do this every day for £8,000 a year, I will absolutely do it. And I will enjoy every minute of it. And that's an important thing. If you go, well, I'm not going to take on this career unless I can make 6 figures minimum, then that's a slippery slope, because to get to the point where you're making that, where you're at the higher level, it takes the 10 to 12 years. It's not an overnight success. It's not well, I'll start this and it'll be fine. There's a lot of graft in between it. And if you do not love the process, it is very hard to move forward. Now, within those 5 years, I was, shooting on Canon 5D Mark IIs. I had the gold ring lenses from Canon, which are not the L lenses, but they're not the plastic lenses. They're the mid-range ones. Had some Bowens heads, which I've still got working back there now. I worked off a MacBook Air with 4 gig of RAM. I didn't need a great deal of kit to do what I was doing back then. It was... the profit margins were high-ish, it was good times. It was fun. I didn't have to be perfect, and nothing had to be amazing. It had to be good enough. And I could do good enough. It was absolutely fine, but I had aspirations of more, which is why I moved on to what I'm doing now, where I specialized. And that point at specialization is where if you're into the big money, you can make the big money. If you're into the high profile shoots, you can get the high profile shoots. That is the point. Now, the 5 years leading up to that, they were chaos. So year 1 to 5, year 1 to 3, I just took pictures. If someone wanted a family picture, I'd probably charge them 50 quid and go and take it. That is cool. Don't feel ashamed about doing that sort of stuff. The first time you get paid £20 to take a portrait, it's stressful because someone's paying you for what you do. The jobs were a nightmare. I was a nightmare. I would be like, yes, we'll do this, 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 and this, and aspirations of a £50,000 shoot on a £50 budget. And you can imagine how badly wrong things went. I didn't understand the industry. I didn't understand the tech. I didn't understand what I was doing. Things would turn out nice one day and not the next day. And that is fine. Is absolutely fine. Don't feel ashamed that things aren't going well. Don't feel that you have to make out they're going well when they're not. Those first 5 years, I was Mr. Johnny Big Balls. I was like, I am great. This is brilliant. Look at my amazing work. My work was awful. And I'm hopefully getting work pop over whilst we're doing this to show you what we've shot and when we've shot it and all that good stuff. My work was woeful though. It wasn't great work. It wasn't good work. It was just work. And that is part of the process. And like I say, with the £8,000 a year, still doing it, throughout this, I've enjoyed the process. And that is one of the biggest indicators, I feel, as if you're going to be, to whether you're going to be a good photographer or not, whether you're going to make it to that high end if you want to. If you do not enjoy the process, this job is not for you. It is a grueling profession to be in. It is so sought after that you have to be the best, the nicest, the most fun person in the room. And I struggle with the nicest and the most fun. I'm a miserable, won't say the C word, and I am not the most fun person in the room, but I make sure I employ fun people to be in the room with me to lift the room, because I am not Mr. Good Times. I am work hard, incredibly serious, apart from in my personal life where I'm an absolute buffoon, but professionally, I take life way too seriously. So this is obviously a very broad overview here, but in terms of how long it takes and how long you need to invest into this if you want to be a professional photographer, I think a decade. And I've said this before, but I do think a decade. But I think the relevance of this video is how it breaks down in between that, and that it's not a case of going from nothing to pro on year 10. There's a whole career within this. There's a whole world within this. And the reason I bring this up is because of my YouTube channel. This here is an exciting video for me. This is video number 300. Now, I don't celebrate landmark of like 1,000 subscribers, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. That doesn't interest me because I know that over time things will become successful if you keep doing them and you look at the critical comments below and you go, right, do they have a point? Yeah, they do. I need to work on that. You know, that's kind of how you go about life in general. But video number 300 says that I have stuck at this for 300 videos. When people were laughing at me, my friends were like, you absolute fool, why are you doing this? You know, you're getting 50 people watch your videos. I continued as a 3-year plan to go, if in 3 years this isn't working, then I'll stop it. Not I'll give it a year and see how it pans out, because nothing good's going to happen in a year of doing this sort of stuff. And within those 3 years, well, I'm still within the 3 years now, but 300 videos, for example, I have, you know, managed to make this a viable business. I could stop photography today and I could live off my teaching, my portfolio reviews, my mentorship program, and my YouTube ad revenue and sponsorship deals. That is enough for me to live on and not have to be a photographer anymore. That's not what I'm going to do. Absolutely not. If anything gives, it'll be the YouTube channel that I get rid of. If things get too much for me to cope with, YouTube will be gone. But I think it shows a good point. So I started again from nothing, and I built myself up over the last 2 years to create 300 videos. And at this point now, I look at 300 videos and go, yes, this has been worth it. But the work put into that, it's much easier to quantify it than going, yes, over 10 years of being a photographer, I made it to here. This is like, yeah, if you make 300 videos on YouTube and you do it critically and you make sure you're constantly striving to improve the work and what you're doing, then it's going to work. Of course it will work. And, you know, part of this learning process is a year ago, I'd have made this video just talking about the YouTube thing and it would have tanked on the algorithm. But now I've gained the experience to know that you can't just talk about what you want, you have to talk about what people need to hear. And if you have something you want to say, you shoehorn it in, which is what I've done here. So anyway, this is just a very small tidbitty video just to really say, stick at it, keep going. If you want to start a YouTube channel, I'm going to make a free guide as to how I do these, which will be soon. So join the Facebook group in the description, which will be a link in there. Because it auto-populates. But stick with things, give it a go. And when I say give it a go, give it a proper go. And not just like, I could have made 300 rubbish videos. And my videos have still got a long way to go. If you look at somebody who's great at making videos, the people I like to watch, like Ted Forbes, his videos are so much better than mine. And I've got so far to go if I want mine to be that good, which I do. And I think it's important to remember that you start somewhere and you've got to put the work in. But as well as putting the work in, it has to be the right work. It has to be the correct work. You have to critically do it. I get a lot of photographers come to me for reviews, for portfolio reviews. They've been doing it for 15 years and they're at the same point now that they were 12 years ago. Because yes, they've been working every day, but they've not been going, what's not working here? What's good? What's bad? Let's be critical. Let's get someone to review this work. Let's get someone to look at it and see what it is I need to do. And that's what makes the difference. Anyway, I hope it's been of use to somebody. I'm going to go and render this one out and get it out today because for the rest of the day, we are making treatments for some shoots I've got coming up. So yeah, best get cracking.